thanks to the some of Azerbaijan presidency for inviting us to our second home, Azerbaijan. Distinguished guests, we know that every February month, every year, is a time for an important commemoration in Azerbaijan because of the Khojaly massacre. By this opportunity, I'd like to begin my speech by wishing justice for those innocent people who left their lives for their country in front of the humanity. Yes, for whom are interested in Caucasus or South Caucasus geopolitics, became almost a concrete knowledge that beginning from mid-90s, two contradicting geopolitical axes were being shaped in the region. One is from north to south and the other from west to east. Therefore, in the related literature of the region's politics, this trend generally assumed as a situation. The 20 years of the region's politics did not challenge this situation as well. South Caucasus had been the arena for Russian and Western spheres of influences. Within these 22 years, military security needs and economic commercial necessities feed this rivalry between those axes. Obviously characterized by geopolitical reasons for both, especially Moscow's southward direction through Armenia and Iran was using mainly security military tools. On the other hand, Turkey-Georgia-Azerbaijan relations were much more based on economic tools. In more recent years, the relations of Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan are multiplied in areas and grieving capacity. This can be understood clearly by comparing it to some other sub-regions in Eurasia. Still, the main pillar seems to be the economy, mostly shaped by huge energy business. For many observers, with taking into consideration the Turkish territory in Caucasus, namely the northeastern parts of our country, we can say that the ongoing cooperation among Turkey, Azerbaijan and Georgia is a kind of de facto South Caucasus integration process. Despite different historical courses that have taken by each Caucasian states in various periods of region's history, the cooperation deepens day by day and trilateral partnership is on its way to a quarter century. But from the aspect of international relations theory, integration is not such an easy word to pronounce. At this point, search for the characteristics of this trilateral relation may help us in understanding the level of cooperation and the situation that Trabzon Declaration symbolizes. The fundamental of this trilateral cooperation has its basis on two main pillars. One is the economic pillar, which contains the energy issue, and the other pillar is the historical pillar, which contains the geopolitical dimension. For a healthy evaluation of this trilateral partnership, in order to make predictions for at least near future, we have to look whether there are vital common interests or not. Because, especially for integration theories, shared vital interests shape the intensity and also life of cooperation and integration. In my opinion, the recent 22 years showed those countries obviously that they have such vital common interests. So, what are those interests? At first stage, need for respect to sovereignty and territorial integrity places. Secondly, the economic and social stability comes. I think that the energy cooperation with its all dimensions can place at the third stage because it requires the above mentioned needs. And please note that those three states are neither Switzerland nor Canada. They experienced many events in recent 25 years and their assertiveness for cooperation didn't lose its momentum. Let's remember what kind of transformative events or administrative changes those three states lived in 25 years. Begin from Turkey. Death of Turgut Özal, President of Turkey, and following Süleyman Demirel's presidency, very intensive period of fight against terrorism in all 1990s, heavy agenda of chronic economic problems, February 28 period, capture and trial of PKK terror network leader, 1999 elections, a new government after 2001 economic crisis, 2002 elections, beginning of AKP era, Abdullah Gül's presidency, the process which is known as Ergenekon, and likewise the so-called solution process for PKK issue, Gezi protests now, and finally the recent struggle between government and some circles. In Georgia, beginning from its early independence years, Abkhazia and South Ossetia wars, Edward Shevardnadze era, the 2004 Rose Revolution, start of Saakashvili era, reforms and transformative steps taken by the government, August 2008 war, parliamentary elections and presidential elections. So and so in Azerbaijan, the Nagorno-Karabakh war, which began before its independence, the Popular Front era, presidency of Elchivey, sending out of Russian troops, Armenian invasion, Khojaly and similar massacres across Karabakh, big waves of migrations, Heydar Aliyev's era and the state building process, and finally Ilham Aliyev era and the takeoff period of Azerbaijan in the region. On the other hand, one has to note that regional and global developments which have very substantial effects on those three countries' relations with each other. In this context, first and second Russian-Chechen war, September 11 terrorist attacks, Afghanistan and Iraq interventions of the United States, presidential and governmental change in Iran, disputes those have risen time to time over Caspian issues, August 2008 war again, the Zurich protocols between Turkey and Armenia, some crisis over maritime jurisdiction in the Black Sea region, the Orange Revolution with following events, the Kharkiv agreement between Ukraine and Russia, whereby the Russian lease on naval facilities in Crimea would be extended by 30 years. European Union and NATO enlargements, the so-called Arab Spring, Syria crisis, P5+1 talks with Iran, and current crisis in Ukraine, namely the Euromaidan movement. Yes, this is a very long list. Why did I list all the events? Because all those events almost have taken place on a big map in which Caucasus has a focal position. So I think that the trilateral partnership between Turkey, Georgia and Azerbaijan is undeniable because it has sustained its momentum even at this very complexity and to some extent chaotic geopolitics. Then what those three states did in this context, what did they do? What did they achieve? First, the energy policy. There will be a focus on energy dimension of the trilateral partnership, so I will just remark that two main energy routes from Caspian to the world. World market is operational by this trilateral way, the BTC and BTE. And foreign trade volume, not only at the bilateral trade volume, but also all three countries' portion on each other's total trade volume increased sharply in last 10 years. And direct investment, especially Turkish direct investment in both countries is remarkable, but Azerbaijan's investment grew up sharply with the energy sector in Turkey, especially since 2011. Azerbaijani companies decisively placed among top 10 foreign investors in Turkey. The list is overwhelmingly Western, but Russia, Malaysia, and Azerbaijan are exemptions. Trilateral business forums held between those three countries. Tourism gained its momentum. At first 10 years, overwhelmingly Georgian and Azerbaijani citizens were visiting Turkey, but not vice versa. Now it gets changed. Even families come to Azerbaijan or directly as a touristic destination to Batumi and Tbilisi or to Azerbaijan by highway with their own cars. Education is another emerging area of intense cooperation. As you know, Turkey is in Bologna process, and nearly all Turkish universities have adopted Erasmus exchange programs, but education traffic of those countries seem to race with European Union programs. Thousands of Azerbaijani students place first among the foreign students in Turkey, in bachelor's degree, in master's degree, also in PhD level. Besides Turkish students, also they study in Georgian and Azerbaijan universities, especially in some technical branches. But this wide range of cooperation requires more points of gains for real integration. Let's see at current situation who gains how from this trilateral partnership. For Azerbaijan, the number one item on its foreign policy agenda and the primary security threat to the state is the ongoing Nagorno-Karabakh conflict with Armenia. Trilateral partnership means containment and bypass of Armenia. Yes, sometimes we witness in some academic circles that Azerbaijan's policy in this way becomes target for criticism of being unfair, but nobody can expect such structural investments through an hostile and invader state or neighbor. Sustaining direct connection with Turkey and the West, this connection mainly refers to the transportation and direct land territorial connection, but it has also cultural and strategic dimensions. Exporting hydrocarbon reserves safely to the West, as we know, Azerbaijan is both Europe's link to the wider Caspian region as well as its connection to the Muslim world and the larger Middle East. Azerbaijan plays a huge role in Europe's energy security and is even considered by some experts the key partner on Caspian regional energy projects. And another item, diminishing the Russian influence on the region. Russian military and diplomatic support for Armenian side and aggressive policy towards south, which made a peak in 2008, are not good memories for the region countries and Azerbaijan. Increasing the potential to be a regional power both in Caucasus and the Black Sea Basin. Yes, for Azerbaijan, a new reason added to the list, namely being an energy power. Azerbaijan is being involved much more in Black Sea geopolitics. For example, Armenia is also a founding member of BISEC organization, but it doesn't seem to contribute to the cooperation in the basin. On the other hand, Azerbaijan increases its investments, especially in energy sector, along entire basin. For Georgia, territorial integrity is the most important item as well, but in this case, although they are combined in various ways, there are two separate problems, namely Abkhazia and Chinvali problems. Benefit from transit position in every kind of transportation, energy, people, goods, service. The value of this position become questionable during Turkey-Armenia talks, but it seems to me, even if the Karabakh conflict resolved one day, the Sarp border will go on to be among the busiest border gates of Turkey because of the highway and connected transportation possibilities around Black Sea. Energy supply security for its own domestic need. Georgia is poor in energy resources like Turkey and relies on both oil and natural gas import from Azerbaijan. Ensuring foreign direct investment, keep in touch with the West via Turkey, ensuring the conviction and behavior in favor of its territorial integrity in the region, and also diminishing the Russian influence on the region. For Turkey, balancing the Russian and Iranian influence in the region, sustaining direct connection with Azerbaijan and Turkic world, direct reach to the Caspian resources, which are vital for Turkish domestic needs also, vitalization of being an energy hub for Europe and alternative to the northern option. On the other hand, Turkey has the people that go to make up the largest consumer market in the region. There are some questions posed for this integration concept. Is it a potential for being a real alliance? If yes, where is the secretary? What are the responsibilities of the members? Who what does in this alliance, etc. For institutional cooperation, all those questions are to be answered, but we also know that this region has many institutionalized cooperation examples like BISEC, CIS, or Guam. There are also doubts about their achievements. Even I do not share their views totally, but many experts use the term dead bird for some of those international organizations. As closing remarks in 1 minute, the trilateral partnership and its potential for a regional integration model had been subject to academic works as well, and even some of these works defines as limited. They underline the integration too. Integration involves at least rudimentary institutional structures among the countries involved, at least some interdependence in policy formation and implementation, and at least some collective sense of mutual identity and obligation. I think this cooperation has a room for regional integration. This kind of cooperation is also the best peaceful way to promote peace, regional peace. From the historical perspective, this cooperation will not depend on the personalities because, as I mentioned, many governmental changes occurred in the region in those 3 countries in a quarter century, and none of the sides gave up cooperating with each other. Integration means much more freedoms for citizens. If it changes the Azerbaijan's visa regime towards Turkey, will surely contribute to this process and create a large visa-free region. Trilateral partnership increases hopes for longer periods of stability and predictability for the region. Thank you very much.